This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to welcome everybody today to the Physical Facilities Utility Agenda, Wednesday, June 3rd, 2026 at 10 a.m. We have a quorum. Are there any changes in the agenda? None? Approval of previous minutes from May 5th, 2026.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second. All right, I have first, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Number 4, visitors' comments in person or online.
We'll hold till our topic.
Number 5 then, maintenance manager report. Just
Excuse me. So basically, May is always, this is a time where we get everything ready for the village and get the village pretty much opened up with the bathrooms, garbage and all that. We did, got the flags up. DNR did their 5-year well inspections, which they all passed except for some very minor issues. No worries there. We did hire our new employee who started on Monday, Bob Nimmer. He is getting acquainted with the village and is, slow but sure, and we'll get him up to speed. We did cut down the stumps on Moravia Point more, so they're a little more flush with the ground. I know Brent and I and Bob Boltman met there, and Bob is formulating his plan of attack, so that is going on. We did meet with Keller regarding some issues at the new shop, some flooring issues, some lighting stuff, which we're waiting for Keller to get back to us on that. The brush dump was opened up and is in use at this point. We did bring a couple loads of gravel, one of the low spots out there last week, and have leveled that out now. So, but as now we're just moving into the summer months and getting everything up and running and going more and more. So,
any questions for Justin on his report? No. All right, thank you, Justin. Number 6, discussion and consideration of the Liberty Tree. I'm just bringing this in front of you is informational. We have a task force that has looked into this, and I think we have come to a conclusion, but there's some information that was given to you in your packet. Carly is here. She's part of the task force. We agreed on a Princeton elm tree. The other person that's on it is Cody. He's not here, unfortunately. But we did agree to recommend to the board that the location would be in Harborside Park to replace kind of near the other tree that came down. In front of you, we have a plaque that a demonstration of what it's going to look like. And we were, Cody was fortunate enough to reach out to Mr. Erickson, who agreed to donate his time and work on the stone, and it's Anderson, excuse me, and it will be out of native limestone, Door County limestone. The plaque, I don't think we have, Carly, we don't have anything, what we're going to say on the plaque yet.
Well, I think Cody had sent just kind of a recommendation. But I think this is pretty much what it said.
What we're going to say.
And I didn't have any issues with that verbiage. So if anyone has any thoughts on it, that is what I think we're gonna kind of go with.
And the plaque is somewhere between $150 and $200. So all in, I think we're looking at tops $2,000, if that.
Mhm.
Does this board, anybody here on this board have any thoughts, recommendations? Going once, going twice?
I think as it's presented, it seems to be, with the limestone, with the native stone backing it and the bronze. It follows in suit with other plaques that are around the village. So I see that this is what the words here are what you're looking for, so I don't see any reason to change anything.
I don't know if you mentioned this, but it is an elm that's been kind of, I don't know if crossbred is the exact word, but it's supposed to be
From the Liberty
disease
Tree.
resistance.
Yes.
And it is kind of ultimately from kind of the original Liberty Tree, which is where this whole concept kind of came from.
And then, the plaque is mounted obviously onto the native limestone, but we are able to move it as the tree gets larger, because as an elm, it is gonna get pretty big.
And we're able to get a more substantial, what is it, 4-inch?
4-inch tree.
Also, yeah, that'd be super size.
Is done.
Is it coming from the one at
Ortonville.
the top there?
Yeah.
My only question is, if they're gonna have them bring their skid steer, because, our skid steer, their attachment, I don't like to do that, because I don't know if it's a high flow attachment or not, we don't have high flow, so if they could bring,
It's all, so the pricing is the conservative pricing. That's if they have to bring their own equipment. I said there may be cost savings, but I said if it gets approved, I put him directly in communication with you, so you can coordinate equipment and digging.
perfect, yeah, because we, works for me.
Anything else, Mr. Carter?
Obviously, we talked about other locations, but we felt with something that was gonna be a more substantial size, that it made sense to have it at Harborside Park as opposed to, had been discussed to replace the library tree, but the reason that tree was taken down is because after a certain size, it can impact the building, so we didn't wanna do that. So, I think we had a really good discussion on kind of all of these different points to come to these conclusions, but if you wanna hear any more of that backstory, happy to share it, but that's.
I'll take a motion for recommendation.
I move that we go ahead with the Liberty Tree planting and the plaque in the place in the Harborside Park as recommended.
I'll second that. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Done. All right. Number 7, discussion on village dump hours of operation. I will start this and then go let Justin have some input. So there was some question at the last board meeting about hours of operation because of possible unauthorized dumping of materials. However, in that discussion, there's a lot of people on weekends that use the dump. And also, I would say after hours, after our workers have not been there, we have had some unauthorized dumping. But the discussion did evolve into putting a camera up there, some signage, but making the camera like on a red pole so that when people are out there, they know that they're on camera. You have anything else to add, Justin?
Just to, well, from Matt saying, we've had, Kim was, her sending out a mass email yesterday, we've got loads of wood chips out there now, topsoil, tree trunks, it's all stuff that's not acceptable at our, for our facility. And, yes, we're gonna be working on getting the camera up here in the next week or week and a half-ish. Get that set up out there, and hopefully that'll squelch our problem a little bit, but we're getting some more signs made up, waiting for the highway department to make a couple more signs to further say that we take this and not this, so it's, it's pretty obvious. Matt's right, there's a lot of other places that control their hours of their dump from usually when, it's either a set time on a 1 day a week or one day on the weekend, or, it's only open during the hours that we're here, so I think if it gets truly, truly abused, we'd have to go that route at some point. And a lot of it is, we may have to look at contractors not dumping out there. That might loosen, we have quite a bit of brush already, which we knew was gonna happen, but, at some point, we may need to look at saying no contractors either. but, yeah, to be determined in the future, but yes.
Discussion?
The other dump sites in the county, the Bailey's Harbor has one. And did they start with an open policy and then have to
Yeah,
change?
they had an open policy and then it became, they were getting, I think they were getting everything and anything out there at one point. And we hit, back 10 years ago, we accepted anything and everything and said, we just can't do this because we got a pile of junk there and then we had to get rid of it, so. But Egg Harbor's the only other one that has a municipal dump site. Otherwise,
Are they controlled in terms of,
yeah,
they are?
it's typically during the day.
How do they monitor it?
I think it's, I know it's closed right now because the influx of stuff they have, they just close it off and say that's it until they can get it chipped up. But otherwise, there's no other, Jacksonport does it, and I think theirs might just be on a Saturday. They do it at their old dump, but the rest of the municipalities in Northern Door don't have a facility that takes brush and yard waste like we do.
Liberty Grove being so close and without a dump site, their alternative is to take it to going garbage and pay by the ton.
Is it?
I was
Well,
gonna
that's
say,
the only
or
place
is
you
it
can
like
go.
Hawkers or like,
Knockers or JF, I know will
Yeah.
take it,
Yeah,
but
but
I think, and that's, that's what we did when when the dump was under construction, anything we had, we were taking out to JF, so.
I think it's a start to use the camera and all that, and then more signage would put teeth to something that you may later have to do.
Yeah,
But I think preparedness to do the next thing
Yeah.
is prudent, because I got a feeling that cameras will only do so much. And clearly there's an awful lot more than, if this was just coming from Ephraim, Ephraim would be bald as a cue ball.
I don't know.
if you look at the stuff that's out there, you're absolutely right, Paul. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, I mean, the first, we knew when we first opened it, I spent an hour and a half out there the first go around pushing it up, because we kind of knew that was gonna happen.
Well,
But
everybody's been saving up.
Yeah, and now it's been a little less than a half hour now, the last couple of times I've been out there to push it up, but we are getting stuff that doesn't belong there.
If you take the last 2 years and the size of the pile that has been there and then chopped up and ground up, and like, I'll say it again, but then Ephraim would be certainly bald as a cue ball, because trees don't grow that fast. Not to the extent that what they're putting out there. It's just amazing.
It is interesting to that point, though, that we don't have a lot of mulch. All the stuff that we grind up, it disappears.
Yeah, and all the stuff, the mulch that you take out by our shop is just wood chips that we get. That isn't even the trees, that's nothing that's tub ground. That's just wood chips that
What you guys-
we've gotten from that, or Jake Ramsey will dump some stuff there once in a while,
Brian? I mean, I'm kind of with Paul. I think the first step is to put the camera out there, put some signage, see how it works. If we do catch somebody and we enforce it, I think the word will get around pretty fast.
Yeah,
You're right.
I think they have to.
Yeah, I think you get around real fast. I mean, we had that issue last year. We had dumping on private property, and then I ended up trailing them out there, and it was coming from somewhere up on Sequest Road. I said, no, it doesn't come here. Yeah, so that's the problem we have, but
So do we have a consensus that we should go with the first step in the
Yeah.
process and then
I think so.
have Justin report back onto us?
I think you put a speaker on it, and you have somebody,
Connected to
remotely say, get out of here. That 10 times. No.
I agree.
But I think it's a place to start, and then,
Yeah. All right.
I mean, you want to keep it open so that the people who are using it properly can have access and all the rest of that stuff, but at some point.
All right. Number 8, discussion of rental of Village Hall. This was brought up Because there is our maintenance crew was breaking down the hall after nonprofits were using it. We don't charge nonprofits. I think there's an easy fix to this. I think that if a nonprofit comes in here and this place is vacant and then they set it up, if they take it down and leave this place as it is, I don't think that we need to charge them a fee. If we come here and it's not as it was, then I think we should implement it. What was it, $85 we figured? Was it
Roughly,
80?
We do that because we have a deposit
Right.
from nonprofits, and Justin would let me know how much I would need to charge them if it wasn't up as it was found.
So that would be my proposal.
Is the language right now doesn't include a clean out, potential to clean up
It
fee?
depends on how it's left.
But if the language would be present in the initial contract, then you have ability to enforce it. And then there again, after you've done it once or twice, it might change the way things go.
Is it, just to clarify, we're not having issues with nonprofits not leaving it as it's found. I don't want that to be implied here at all. That's not the
No.
issue.
Every once in a great while, it's not often at all. Going up there.
Since this did come in front of the board, I did have a conversation with EDC and EHF. And I know that it would be very, if they had to pay for the fee every single time, that would be very detrimental for their ability to do all the programming that they have if they had to pay every single time. They do recognize that there is a fee potentially, or like a cost associated with having access to it based on time from the maintenance. So I know that if there is meant to be a fee, like a lower kind of one-time fee, kind of like Sister Bay does, would be something that's potentially okay. But I also know that in speaking with those two, that I think they would be very open to doing the takedown, breakout, whatever you say, and stay on top of it as much as possible. The only thing that I'm wondering is staring at these big screens, how that impacts.
So we will take down everything that's here. When somebody rents it, it is, Kim has been very good at, if we need, leave the tables up here. Otherwise, everything else is locked away in our storage before anybody rents the hall. It's just, I'll just use Concerts in the Park for an example. We get a rainy night and people come in and out of here, and we come in here on Tuesday and we have a meeting Tuesday, and the floor looks like crap. And now we gotta spend time mopping the floor and getting it back to where it was, or, that's where that has happened in the past, nothing recent, but that is one that sticks out that,
Yeah, and I think from when inception of, nonprofits not paying a fee, that was pre-COVID, pre us having meetings down here. So it used to sit empty 365 days a year. So when a nonprofit used it, there really was no impact. As long as they left it the way they found it, it really didn't incur any costs or time on our end. Now, if someone uses it, Justin and team break it down, and then typically, because everyone has probably experienced an audio video issue, if time allows, I try to get down here the day before or early for a meeting, call it average a half hour per time, to make sure everything works, because all this stuff doesn't like getting unplugged. So that's part of it, is there is more time associated with any entity using it than there used to be.
Also, the start of the conversation was we had another nonprofit from Sister Bay that needed board approval for no fee, and that's how the conversation got started again. They wanted to use the hall for rehearsal, for a string quartet, but they did not want to pay. So that's kind of how the conversation started again.
I don't think that this board can make that decision, but I know we did talk about whether to restrict the no fee to only local,
Yeah.
from nonprofits. And I mean, I'm not speaking for the board, but I would be in favor of that.
Yeah. I think that we definitely talked about that, and I think, again, we can't make that decision right now, but.
I guess, I mean, we can do this in census, but I think what we're trying to make the point of is that if you come here and it's clean, leave it as it is. So that it's not costing us more than it already is. Thoughts, Paul?
It's interesting, the history here, but this conversation started from an outside entity, although a nonprofit wishing to use the facility. I think it's prudent to say if that were to happen again, the status of nonprofit does not usurp you from being outside, so you would still have to pay even though you're still a nonprofit. I think to change what's currently being offered to the local nonprofits without any real reason to do so, you're suggesting that only occasionally when we have a dirty floor or something like that, everybody else seems to be following the rules. To make a rule change on even one or two instances wouldn't be prudent. But I think to add the language that if only local nonprofits that are exempt from any kind of fee would be sensible. And until sometime when the nonprofits that are currently not paying in until they start abusing that privilege, then there's no point in making a rule where there isn't a rule needed.
Brian?
Yeah, I would agree with Paul on that. That's, I think, the way we have to approach this.
Is that? Yes?
It's up, I don't know if you want to make a recommendation to the board.
Sure.
That, well, it'd be helpful to have some guiding, when people call and want to make a reservation, that I have something in stone to say that only local village fee from nonprofits.
Sure.
I'll move that we create language that only local nonprofits, that means Ephraim, are exempt from any kind of cleaning fees or fees in general for use of the village hall.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll say.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Discussion recommendation on snow removal and other items on the north end walking path. And we are so fortunate to have our administrator here as well. Do we remove snow currently on the downtown sidewalk?
On the sidewalk, nothing across the street on the shorefront, we do not. The sidewalk, we do.
Okay. So being a up north business person, there's not a lot that goes on. Although I will say that we now have we have 2 established businesses, a new one soon to be. Do you have any idea how long it would take for you guys to?
Not yet. I think it's just, hard to say, because, some of that's gonna butt up right against the highway, so we'll have all the highway snow, so it's gonna be hard to say what our time frame would be that we would have to do it in.
The reason I bring that up is that we have 2 places that are open year round. And we've built this path to make it for people accessible for them to walk to businesses. So on one hand, I see a reason not to, but then that kind of goes against the whole reason why we built the path in the first place. We're not trying to segregate, based off of what season it is. Do you have any thoughts, Paul?
I would think this goes back. The north end has been, the northern end businesses have frequently thought of themselves as being less of a business than the downtown businesses. It's always been Well, we never get any of the help we don't have. Fear ball doesn't happen up here. I could, the list goes on and on and on. So they've always been the, they even, that group up there created their Northern Ephraim, not really truly, but business council, they had this alternative thing where advertising on their own and all that sort of thing. We don't need to give that end of the town any more reason to come to segregate themselves. So at least for now, I think we need to plan on cleaning it up like we do here. If it becomes real obvious at some point that this is just folly, that there is nobody using it, then at that point in time, we can make that change. But I think for now, if you're building the sidewalk, it's meant to be used. Certainly the south end, it's not used heavily, and there's not a whole lot of people here, but I do see people in the winter using it. If there's a sidewalk, build it, they will come. So I think for the meantime, at least for the initial, year, I think we push the snow off.
Is that something you can do, that blower? Just-
Yeah, it'd all be snow blower. That's what it'd end up being, so.
So you drive it up there?
Yeah, that's the same thing we do down here. We run the blower right down the sidewalk because that's the easiest way to do it, so.
Administrator, do you have any thoughts?
You're never gonna know until you try and then know how much time it takes until you do it. You're right, I mean, the first 900 feet, 1,000 feet is gonna be just like downtown, where it's right off the curb. And then there's a portion that's farther off, so there'll be a part that's, I'll say, relatively easy to remove, but there'll be an easier section than a tougher section. Yeah, I don't know if that would have, I doubt it'll have any impact on if people will choose to stay open because there's a walking path now. I think most of the open businesses are probably on the opposite side.
Yeah.
But that's
I don't
why we have
know
those
if that'll have
crosswalks.
Any impact on crosswalks, because again, we had to create the landing by Claude's between your place up there, Sarah. I guess you probably then have to open that up,
Yeah.
so there is a landing, there's really not a landing on the opposite side, it just kind of ends by the Blue Bell parking lot there. No, I think it's reasonable to try it and see.
Learning curve the first time around to see what it does. I think that's what you gotta go with. I mean,
It's mostly asphalt, so hopefully once it's cleared, it stays that way.
It'll melt off.
it should,
Yeah.
fresh asphalt usually melts off a lot quicker than a couple-year-old asphalt.
Yes, it does.
Can I get a motion?
I'll move that we undertake snow removal on the north end sidewalks.
Second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, passed, thank you. Number 10, discussion recommendation regarding administration building plans. We have some plans here. And I wanted to bring this on our agenda because this is a physical facility. There was 3 plans. Number 2, if I remember correctly, was the one that the office people liked. All these plans, well, I think the third plan is the tear down, right?
It's the fourth one.
Or the fourth one, excuse me, the fourth plan. In the proposals here, number 2 was like 1 point something.
It's
1.6, okay. Yeah, so if you look at this, and I've had some more time to look at this than you guys, but the interesting thing, I think, is if you look at option 4, a totally new facility versus trying to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. If I get that the building is historic and we like to keep things historic. However, this is just me. I think that we are pigeonholing ourselves because we have how can I say this, an antiquated basement that's, it's not perfect, and we do have old plumbing up there. And I think that if we're going to spend that much money, so let's say on the high end, it was, 1.8. And option 4, for an extra 200, you get everything new. From a business standpoint, I'm not talking about the architectural standpoint, I'm talking from a business standpoint. It doesn't make a lot of sense to try to work within, certain area when you can start new.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Brett. Just to add on to this, so option 4, one of the things that has to be considered in Matt's kind of recommendation is the location. So are we saying a tear down? That's not necessarily what we're recommending.
Right.
And if it's not a tear down, then we would have to determine the location, which would potentially include land purchasing. And then also, if it's not a tear down, then going up to option 0, we would recommend at that point that if that's not going to be torn down, that there is some basic maintenance done, which is what option 2 is.
And then the other thing, I didn't see that in here, was when they're doing all this work, where our
Yeah,
employees.
and that is something we've talked a lot about internally as a task force, is the kind of disruption that it would cause. And that is absolutely part of it, is where would people be, even if, because there is going to be a lot of internal work being done. Where would the staff be? We talked about potentially having someone camping out here for kind of office hours and rotating through who that might be. Maybe it's the maintenance building, who knows? Like, there's lots of, we don't have that exact solution yet, but that would be part of it, is there is a disruption to staff for the construction.
Thoughts?
I'd like to make a comment if I may, please. This is Jane Larson, 10007 Iverson Lane. One thing that option 4 in the cost that is not included is tear down. So you cannot use the price that is in your packet as the final cost for option 4. In addition, you do need to keep in mind that this isn't a residential area, and you do need to take into consideration what the neighbors are thinking. And that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unrelated to the choices, where's the money coming from?
Did the task force talk about that?
No, not yet. We didn't, it really just, depends on what number we're talking about.
Well, everything's over $1 million.
Well, not the first one.
Well, and the conversation started because of general conditions, lack of space.
That's the reason this is a topic now, is when the board created the capital ad hoc committee, so just after streetscape, and established the 5 top priority things, which were Anderson Dock, North End path, maintenance garage, fire station admin. It was just next on the list from a priority standpoint. So the others are either in the works or completed. So just going off of the work that was done there, this was the next topic. But it was, I would say, within that group, specifically something that kind of drove Chuck Pearson's guidance through establishing priorities, is investing time and money into the places that are employed to do the work are doing the work. So that's why you saw the maintenance garage right at the top, that was deemed to be the least
Impactful?
inhabitable, useful for the operation.
And the current building has, like we're saying in the deferred maintenance, there's a flat roof, so there's water issues, there's a lot of different, it's not fully conditioned. So now, especially since the preschool is not there anymore, it gave us an opportunity to really kind of look at the whole building. So I know that was part of the reasoning as well.
Do any of these, does the tear down option in either one of them then allow a new building to be put in the same place? Or are we looking at square footage that creates issues?
I mean, I think raising the existing building and putting it in that location, I mean, to Jane's point, yeah, there would be some expense in raising that building. I'm not getting into the architectural history, you know, all of that stuff. That's a separate large topic. Yeah, to Jane's point, there probably would be some additional expense to raise that, but to what Carly said too, if we were going to, say, do option 4 and build a new admin building out at the German Road dump, let's just say that's a location where we own property. There's still deferred maintenance and work that needs to happen with that building if you were gonna rent it out to a nonprofit, or if the library were to move up there, or any number of things. If that building is to remain, it's still a building we need to maintain.
Yeah.
So there would be expense if there were 2 buildings.
Is there any structural issues with the building that you know of?
No, to Carly's point, there's some roof issues, some flat roof issues, there's ice damming, insulation issues, there's water damage, you know, concerns over mold and mildew, that's all being tested. But structurally, it's a
Foundation's
stone
good.
building, so it's solid.
So do you think in that vein, would it be worth it to try and invest back into that building just because of the historic nature of it?
I think that's.
He doesn't want to answer that question. That's a loaded question. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
great,
you know, say it's, you know, my name along with Ken's and Carly's, you know, on that little report. But, you know, we involved greatly, you know, Andre and Kim into this too. And again, as the people that, you know, live with the financial decisions the board makes day in and day out, and, you know, more the pulse of money coming in, money going out. There's no doubt, we see the need, we want some improvements, feel we need some improvements there, so being cost concerned, you know, what has the most legs? So again, could option 4 be the best option over 40, 50 years? It's possible, but we didn't really dive too deep into that, kind of thinking of the architectural side, that unless the engineers or the environmental provides a reason why that's not worth pursuing, that's kind of why our recommendation lean more towards the option 2.
Yeah, I think to put what Brent is saying bluntly, we feel that option 2 has the most likelihood of moving forward, and that it is recognizing the history of the building, you know, it's the old schoolhouse, there is, you know, some love for that building within the community. And also it is addressing all of the needs of the staff, current and a little bit of potential growth as well.
Did you, since that we had our last board meeting, did you come up with anything for the basement?
We haven't met since. And so to kind of fill that in, none of these options as of right now make the basement accessible. So it really limits what we can use in the building. It's not currently accessible. I think a rough estimate of adding like an elevator to make it fully accessible is like 400,000 or something that changes the whole conversation.
How would you see using that space?
So there's talk of additional storage, which is one of the issues that is needed to be addressed with the current situation, is that there's more and more archives. Yes, a lot of it can be electronic and handled electronically, but there are still some things that just need to be held on to physically for at least a certain amount of time. It is something that it is just, we can make that space a lot more flexible, just not accessible, is the way that we've kind of landed it at this point.
So do we think it's a drainage issue, or is it just an old foundation that needs to be resealed from the outside?
Currently, from a, condition-based standpoint, there's really nothing there to, control humidity. So, that's a relatively easy fix. I mean, as far as if you insulate or what, there's the old, like block window, well, just to provide light. There's leaking there, old casements and things that probably need to be fixed, but at the end of the day, it'll still always be a basement. But what are the plans for, for that basement? We had drawings at one point that kind of cordoned off a little storage room, and then the rest was called a basement bonus room or something, but we didn't dive too deep into that because building a stick-built partition wall or a couple of them is, a drop in the bucket comparatively. So until or if we would investigate making that accessible, then there was no need to go any further as how else could we use that? Because that was a big issue with like the current, offices is none of the offices have air exchange in them. Only 2 of the 3 have openable windows, 2 of them have no heat. So, an example, like well, for whatever reason, back in COVID days when there was election in the winter and, I was working remotely on election day, or even now, if my door is shut overnight, it's probably 45 degrees in there. Again, it's a small room, so it warms up. That's again, the idea of having conditioned air in each office, openable windows in each office, again. Could you achieve that in a basement and have a well or, something like that? Sure you could, but we didn't dive too deep into that.
And the basement does have the utility room, which would be able to still handle kind of any and all the upgrades that are being recommended.
I agree with all of that. But putting aside the architectural point of it, from a taxpayer, being responsible to our taxpayers, I mean, it doesn't make financial sense to put that much money into option 2 when you can start new. It's sort of like, okay, I need a new car. Okay. Am I going to buy a 1970 Pinto for $2,000, or am I going to buy a 2015 for $5,000? It would make no sense to buy a 1970 Pinto when you could buy a 2000 something for $5,000. None of us would do that. I get the thing. But I think we're getting hung up on the architectural thing, because that building, I don't think it's even 100 years old yet, is it?
1948, I think is what it says.
Yeah, it's not technically a historical, on the historical register building. It just has historical significance within Ephraim. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, the option 4 does not include raising, the actual cost of raising, and it does not include land purchase if we are going to not raise that. And if we are not going to raise that, that doesn't include the maintenance of the building. So that $2,000.
$2 million?
$2 million. That'd be great. Use the 2,000 for that Pinto. There's more to it than just the straight 2 million. Right?
Well,
Okay.
and that's
I
kind
just
of
want to
the,
make sure
kind
that
of the
we're not.
idea too,
It's not.
is, with Keller, it started life as we want, 1 or 2 options, and then from there we could dive in, through the conversation, more options develop. Again, it kind of started option 3, initially kind of was the one we were leaning on, the larger addition, and then call it basically the lion's share of the existing building would just become the meeting room. And all offices, where we would spend 99% of our time would be the separate addition. At the time, the early light in that was we could potentially stay put where we were while the new section was being built, and we that to move into the new. It just got to be expensive, it got to be.
Unnecessarily large.
Unnecessarily large and very impactful, both financially and visually. Again, just kind of being sensitive to that history. So that's kind of where option 2 came from. Is there a way we could better utilize what we have and make a minor addition to the building, minimizing the impact to the structure, really just limiting the addition to the area that's previously been added onto in that northwest corner.
Excuse me, this is, if I may interrupt, please, this is Jane Larson again. And as a taxpayer, I support option number 2. I do not support option number 4. So please keep that in mind. I also encourage the committee to listen to the people who use the building, who are in favor of option 2. I think that is extremely important. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you go back far enough in time, there was no village office. We didn't have any village employees to speak of, if you go far enough back. And I'm curious about this, the building, when it was the school building, it was the Ephraim. Did Ephraim own that all the while, or was it part, at some point in time, owned by the school board?
It was part of the Gibraltar system.
And then how did that transaction, was it always that way, or was it only when schools were consolidated?
I didn't have time to look in any great detail, but
Oh, I don't
the
need to.
new school edition, kind of by the, I don't know if they call it an annex or whatever, they have a huge display of all the old school buildings that were part of the system, and there's lots of old Ephraim pictures there. What that history is, I don't know. I think the Pulse actually did a piece on it a handful of years ago, but offhand,
Okay. And then the other thing I was wondering, when the new firehouse was built, I was around when it happened, I just don't remember if there was a lot of angst about putting a building up there. So that was a substantial change to the neighborhood.
So this came up a little bit during ever so slightly during this iteration of the discussion and at some length during the CAP ad hoc meetings. The information we were given then is, because the fire department, similar, is having conversations about, are they outgrowing their space? They could use, offices, they could use an additional bay, they could use drive-through bays, all these things. History-wise, what we had been told is they got the station built as big as it would be supported. There was a desire for it to be bigger, but that was the biggest that they could get through. Now, with that said, at CAP ad hoc, there were discussions about, well, do we, I want to say tear down the fire station, tear down the admin building and build a compound, add fire station, a multi-purpose meeting room in with fire station offices and kind of share that property in more of a communal building. I guess the short answer there is it kind of died out because of concerns over, will there ever be a Northern Door Fire District? And if so, and that was a contentious discussion. A lot of communities got kind of concerned because there were discussions about, well, then all of your equipment becomes Northern Door Fire District equipment, and your truck would potentially be parked in someone else's station. How would that all work? Who would drive this thing? So that did get some discussion, but I think ultimately, I don't know. I would say this was deemed a higher priority project, so it was decided to separate the two.
Yeah.
But there was a discussion at one point in time about combining efforts. But the fear too is it wasn't felt that we could afford to wait 5 years or 10 years to do admin, to wait and see what happens with the fire department.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that is that if we did try and keep them together, then something may never happen. So we wanted to be able to have some movement on these priorities taken care of, through our staff. And there could be some ability to move, like, the training space, we talked to Justin, with having the meeting area larger and kind of set up permanently with kind of option 2 and 3 and obviously 4 would give them ability to move some training into that space as well. So it could give some flexibility to how they utilize their space as well.
The hard part about all this is, and I'll use Gibraltar School as an example. And when the schools consolidated and they built the high school in its current location, and I'm not sure, it's different, it's hard, it's easy to look back and say, now, when you continue to add on, they bought a very finite space of property to put, but is now becoming a much larger campus. And as Door County and Ephraim, all the villages, and Ephraim in particular, are going to continue to grow in demand for people coming here for a whole lot of reasons. There's going to be a lot of migration here for environmental reasons. There's going to be reasons to move here for just general well-being and all the rest of that. The likelihood that the village offices and offerings are going to shrink is fantasy. It's going to continue to grow. And I would hate to see us wind up cornholing ourselves into a piece of property that we can't expand to what we need to, other than tear up the tennis courts and then all the rest of that. On the other hand, you've got a building that is, by your own explanation, not serving the needs of yourselves as well as the community. However, this community has a history of wanting to hold on to things that they deem as iconic. It's not an old building. It's not that old. It's got some old lovely stonework on the outside, which, is all great. And then this isn't helping at all here, but it is the quandary that we're all going to sit in. And it's one of these things that we think, we need to do it this way because we want to preserve history and it's important to all the rest of that. And then 10 years down the road, another group comes in and says, what the heck were people thinking? We needed that space. We needed now we can't afford to do it or whatever, or that opportunity is gone. So whatever decision is arrived here, if it's going to be 2 that everybody's kind of leaning towards because we're keeping the building and there's a greater chance of that passing, or do we go to number 4, which may or may not be, it may solve all the problems, but then again, you have to put it someplace. And unless you're going to annex land somewhere, other than the village properties that are currently owned, you've got well, yeah, that's it. You got the town line property, and you've got, Germanville property. So, unless you annex another, bunch of property. It's a rock and a hard place to find ourselves in.
And these options we did try and think not just like solving the immediate problem. There is flexibility built into some of these options. Like we've looked at and had a lot of iterations of all of these different kind of layouts. But there's more iterations out there. We just needed to, or wanted to kind of get to a place to see where kind of the board was leaning, your group was leaning, just so we could then focus our time instead of having iterations of every single option every time we met, just so we were kind of focusing our energy in ways that felt, more helpful. So there are more, I'm sure there's more flexibility that we could build into these options as well. This is just kind of where we're at right now.
Where did the 818 square feet addition come from? Was there a reason it was that specific number, or can it be greater?
Not really. It was just kind of that actually started with staff as a hybrid option that the additional 2,100 square foot or 2,000 square foot addition, that's just too much. too much and almost to a negative, almost too much separation. It's that delicate balance where, to me, the final goal on top of making, our new offices function, safely, effectively for the operation is to move meetings back up to the admin building. Just call it simply just from an audio video standpoint, having something hardwired means less issues. Anytime there's wireless connectivity, there's issues. So that's a huge plus. But again, then that creates the issue with separation and not being a disruption. Because the nice thing now is Andrea is up at the office doing her work completely, unawares, not impacted by this meeting had 25 people in attendance. The new addition was just simply too much of that. So basically it was, what can we do to have 3 offices and a little, kind of call it a reception area within that area. So that's how the 813 came to be.
Yeah.
We-
It was
we-
more
yeah.
created out of, the number was come to by creating a solution
Yeah.
to the problem.
And again, we talked too about, okay, that solves the issue of today. And, we've talked at length about, do we ever think we'll need a 4th full-time person? Well, I've been here 20 years and we've actually gone down in staff. So there is room built in, whether that's for an intern or a summer position at some point in time. Again, the idea is the basement. There would be an ability there. But again, just kind of picking, an option or 2 to further investigate. If this committee, our ad hoc group or the board says, you know what, no, we don't want to be short-sighted. We want a 4th office space. You might not need it now, but you sure wish you had it in 15 years. Then that, 818 becomes 1100 or, something like that. It's all being added on to that side. It's kind of baselines to fine tune, I guess, once we don't want to get too into the weeds with all of them. But it's tough to take 5 options to a buildable plan set that's not cost effective either.
And the 3,500 is also a bit of a guesstimate as well, just
Correct.
based on,
An option 4.
yes, exactly.
The other side of the coin here is you gotta sell this.
Exactly.
Yeah, if, let's just say, one of these options is required to continue. Well, option 0 is just but of the, if that's necessary, then you have to sell it, and the easiest sell on the board here is 2. The tougher sell is 4. 3, I don't even think you have to worry about. Because I think it, just what you said, you're adding on a chunk that isn't gonna seem needed.
Yeah.
It may be needed, but it won't seem needed.
Yeah.
Perception is more important than reality. Option 2, it's limiting, but on the other hand, it's the saleable piece because it's not gonna alter the neighborhood. Option 4, the neighborhood may be altered or one way or the other. If you're gonna keep the building there, you're already talking about a building that's hard to do A, B, C, D in. And if you're gonna keep it there, you're still gonna have to do some maintenance or changes to make a storage building out of that, which may or may not make sense. 4, if you tear the one down, you've got a place to build it. If you don't tear it down, where is that gonna go?
Yeah.
And so I think 4 is a real possibility, but it's the bigger sell. And if you do sell 2, and you do 2, then 4 is off the table, at least probably in our lifetime. Mine, anyway, but I'm out the door here pretty quick, so.
And that's kind of the idea why option 0 is a number, but 0, that's our starting point. So the idea that from a sales standpoint, we're not starting as, we have an option here for 0 expense. Our starting point is $600,000 plus. From there, it's what are the other options worth? Is it worth investing another, $1 million to do option 2?
Well, if you're looking for a leaning, I'm, you know, I would lean 2 or 4, but I think from a likelihood of getting something on table to actually work from, you know, something in the two vein of thought has a better chance than 4, unless something falls from the sky that makes, you know, somebody says, hey, you know, my house is falling apart and I'd like to donate my wonderful beachfront property so you can build an office here. That ain't happening, but.
But to your point, the reason why I like 4 is because if you go back, not very long ago, we had this school in Fish Creek, and we had people who wanted to keep that building because that's the way they remembered it as their childhood. And there was a group that wanted to sell that and move out to A there and have a huge chunk of property to do what they needed to do. And if, like you said, hindsight's 20/20, but if you go back, it would have been cheaper to get rid of that current school, build it out on A, and we wouldn't be spending another $30 million like we are today.
Right.
So when I'm not being not sympathetic to the architectural point of the thing, I'm being more logic that all those options other than 4 is the only one that makes sense from a dollar stand. Because
If I may, Mr. Meacham, this is Jane again, taxpayer. If option 4 is what you're very interested in, I would not support it if you would be putting it in the same place and a larger building in the same place. If it were in a different piece of property, perhaps I would. But again, we don't really have proper financials to be comparing apples to apples here. And just one other comment, Paul, you had asked about the beginning of the firehouse when that was built. Overall, the residents in that neighborhood at that time were not in favor of it, period. So yes, this is a controversial piece of property. There are some of us who are in support of making it a community property, not a massive building or massive new building property, which is one reason I support option 2, is that we can make this into a real community place with incorporating the playground and updating that and keeping the very popular right now tennis and pickleball courts. So I think it goes a little bit beyond just dollars. It goes into what works best for the community and those who are there even year round. I think this option 2 could be very viable and I think very positive. Thank you.
Thank you. To that point, like option 4, we don't need to build the 3,500 square feet. I'm just saying build a new building because option 2 is only requiring 2,900 square feet. So if you can get by on 2,900 square feet with option 2, option 4, you could build at 2,900 square feet. And it would work.
Where do you build it? I mean, Jane brings up a good point, so.
Right, but I'm just saying to you that if, regardless of what they're going to have to do, there's going to be inconvenience here. So if the board was to approve to tear it down, they can come down here and do their work temporarily. And option 4 actually will come down in price if you reduce it from 3,500 to the 2,900 square feet. But that's ultimately up to the board. But I do have, this is a recommendation thing, so I'm hearing that we would recommend either number 2 or number 4. Is that what I hear?
I don't think, at least what I'm saying, that I, as exactly as presented, but the concept
Right.
of, adding on what is kind of needed as described, but that number, square footage wise, could go up or down depending on what actually makes some sense. I mean, it may, you add a couple hundred more square feet that, we can do this and not much more money, but it's, satisfies more needs. Or like you just said, option 4, maybe we don't need 3,500 square feet. What can we, if it goes to 29 or 26, what are the savings there? But I think that those 2 options in terms of scope make the most sense to pursue. I think option number 3, to add on a significant addition wouldn't be much different than tearing what's down and building new. So I don't think that helps. And then, you're not doing a whole lot on option number 1 either.
So can I get like a motion just in scope as to what?
Yeah, I would move to recommend to the board that they concentrate more time and effort in either option number 2 or option number 4, both in scope and size and up or down, and coming up with a way to, and the where to do number 4 if that would be the case.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Number 11, do we have any new business for the next meeting?
More of the same.
Motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.